open with a moment of silence followed by the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there any public comment on agenda items only? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business. Approve the minutes of the 2021 Commissioners meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Proclamations and certificates. Jordan Smalley of the Borough of Stroudsburg is receiving his Eagle Scout. We congratulate him. Motion to accept proclamations and certificates.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. New business. Personnel and electronic transfers. Personnel A through B and electronics transfers A through C. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Travel authorization. Approve and ratify the travel request report, including Area Agency on Aging, Assessment, Children and Youth, Commissioners, Grants, Public Defenders, Vector Control, and Veterans Affairs. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 4, Carbon Monroe Pike, MHDS. Acknowledge the resignation of Michael Albert. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I'd like to thank Michael and his lovely wife for their dedication to that program. Children and Youth. Reappoint the following board members to the advisory board: Dr. Damari Bonilla Rodriguez and Donna Watson, and acknowledge the resignation of the board from Carrie Whites. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner's Office. Ratify the budget adjustment report dated 2/2024 totaling $6,717,732. What that was a budget adjustment that allowed money to go from transcripts to oil, gas, and grease in a vehicle line item to cover the cost of a termed lease, and the other is out of the grants, which is the American Rescue Plan for a total of $6,709,905 that goes to PVM to cover lost revenues. Approve the budget adjustment dated 2/29/24 totaling $34,245. Aging has a budget adjustment of $351. That's for reimbursement of events and meals. Aging has another one for $10,024, or one for $10,204 and another for $5,004. That is to shore up a revision to the grant. The Commissioner's Office is $10,000 to cover console fees for our TRAN, contribution to the fund balance of $6,086 for engineering and architectural fees. That was to pay for the relocation of MDJ Riley at the Barrett Center. We have the sheriff for $430 for a cell phone. Tax assessment, $1,670. For those of you who were following this closely, you realize that they're getting new partitions there, and we had to cover the cost of the power poles. Ratify a limited scope agreement for Pannoni Associates for Monroe County Courthouse project. This is to do for $850 per event. Whenever we have a suspected asbestos in the courthouse renovation, we have to have Pannoni come in and test. Ratify submittal of the National Resource Conservation Service, USDA, of the county to express their preference for the sponsor preferred alternative for both Goose Pond and Levitt Branch Dam for the rehabilitation of each dam. Execute agreement with Walker Consultants for professional consulting services for repairs of the parking deck with asset management plan for the amount of $57,020. Amend the agreement of Kudu Creative, increase contract total to not exceed $413,467. This is for the fentanyl awareness program. If you see the billboards throughout the county, we're using the opioid settlement funding for that. Acknowledge the receipt of the Liquid Fuels Tax Fund, Act 44 and Act 89 Tax Fund Acceptation Agreement for January 1st to 2018 to December 31st, 2020, as prepared by the Auditor General. Execute the following change orders for the courthouse renovation expansion project to Lobar for $19,533.62 and add the following vendors to Aging, Mrs. Lois Labar, and for maintenance, ATCO Brands. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Correctional Facility, execute renewal agreement with Guardian RFID for inmate management, monitoring, tracking at the rate listed on Addendum B, $3,500 per year, through 12/31 of 27. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Grants, approve the fiscal director to electronically sign the 2024 mosquito-borne disease control contract for a period of January 1st, 24 to December 31st of 24, amount of $113,717. $133,000. Acknowledge the receipt of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security grant program agreement for the fiscal year 23 for the total amount of $893,705. That is a grant that covers 11 counties, so it's not coming all to Monroe County. That has to be divided up by the 11 counties. Acknowledge receipt of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania fiscal year 23-24 hazardous material response grant agreement for the amount of $7,821. That does come to Monroe County. And approve the CSBG recipient contracts for the period of January 1st, 24 through December 31st of 24, pursuant to state agreement with the first allocation as listed. You can see Shepherd's Maternity, Family Promise, Monroe County Meals on Wheels, Pocono Area Transitional Housing, the United Way for the info line, Pocono Services for Families and Children, Resources for Human Development, Salvation Army Emergency Services, and Stroud Regional Open Space and Rec. Pike County, because we have to approve both of those. There also, because it's a concurrent thing, for $11,072 to Center for Development Disabilities, Pike County Human Development for $11,934, and Pike County Human Services for $8,777. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
On the, is there a reason Carbon's not in that list too?
No, Carbon has its own, whereas because Pike size, it's Monroe and Pike. And we make sure that they get their allocation according to how it's designed.
Okay.
And they decide how they spend their money. Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Pennsylvania Northeast Regional Railroad Authority, reappoint Mr. Andrew Fort to a term expiring 1/31/29. Mr. Fort has been on this since I've been on it. and he is a valuable member. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Pleasant Valley Manor. Ratify execution of the following intergovernmental transfer, or IGT. PA Department of Human Services Office for Long-Term Living Agreement to collect IGT funds, and the PA Coalition of Affiliated Healthcare and Living Communities, or PACA, agreement to disperse IGT funds. What that is the county puts up money. They take that money and it goes to the state goes to the feds. We get more money back than we put in, and that money goes to PVM. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Probation. Execute agreement with Villigent, Villigent, for client monitoring services for a 1-year period at rates listed on the agreement Table 1 and Table 2 with solicitors' changes, and acknowledge the receipt of the Justice Court Judges Commission Juvenile Probation Services Grant for $96,795 for grant period 7/1/23 through 6/30/24. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Know anything about this kind of stuff?
Not sure what that is.
Sheriffs, execute agreement with Permitium LLC for permits at a rate of $5 per transaction for the period of 5/24/24 through 5/24/25. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Capital outlay purchases. Ratify the purchase report of 2/21/24 totaling $2,800.20. That goes for 3 standing desk converters for the correctional facility, and tax assessment for $1,663 for the said power poles, for a total of $2,800.20. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Computer capital purchase. Ratify the computer purchase report dated 3/31/24 totaling $31,965. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? This is for the second part authentication. How would I say?
Two-factor authentication.
Thank you, Trish. What happens is that we sign into our computers, we use a password, and now that's step 1. Now what we'll do is have to have an they'll send us a message, and we'll have to probably put in a numerical code that is generated. That allows us to protect our network, which we are ever so vigilant. So
We should point out, too, it's required by our insurance, and sounds like half of it's being funded by a grant.
correct. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Miscellaneous. Dave, anything?
No.
Sharon?
No.
Just remember, Community Night is April 30th at the Northampton Community College. Public comment. Is there any public comment? Go ahead.
A report out of Harrisburg says counties will have to report how they spent the first round of the opioid settlement payments. Just wanted to see if you guys knew about that and if you think results should be made public, so that they should.
We have filed our first settlement report. Most of our money has gone towards and most of the money spent within the state has been on a campaign to fight fentanyl. We are looking to see what else is eligible under the section A and B of how they came out with how you can spend the money. You have to identify or have a past use of opioids in your drug history if you are a user, which sometimes becomes difficult because what we find is it's a matter of economics of what drugs are available. However, what you might have been got started on pain pills and then you went to, when pain pills were no longer available, then you went to heroin, but now you're using meth. That allows us to help you because you have identified as using opioids in the past. If you're just a user of another illegal narcotic, you are not we cannot use our money to help those people. So it's a balancing act.
I have one thing to comment on.
Go
One,
ahead.
I think along with what John was saying, a huge part of it for the county and one of the push for this nationally is awareness for people to understand what can happen with fentanyl and just the lacing of all kinds of pills that people don't understand. So our first major initiative has been a lot of awareness right now. We're continuing that for another 3 months, and then we'll decide the other directions that we go in.
I will publicly state that our new district attorney has used the resources of his office to, and not only now, but in the past, one of the things that we do is one of his detectives has what we call an OFR. And what we do is look into somebody who has passed away from an opioid overdose, and we try to find out how services might have been able to intercede on that person's behalf. In other words, we're trying to learn from perhaps some of our mistakes. We also, if there is a known use of Narcan, we will go out the next day and have a conversation with that person that had the overdose and try to get them into treatment. And we have had an increase of success in that. When you look at the statistics of people that are in our judicial system, we find an awful lot of them do have some kind of drug problems, and we are trying to figure out better ways to spend that money towards that.
Chairman?
Yes.
Could I mention? So as far as making it public, we do, as far as I know, every expense that we've done on that has been made public, hasn't it? We just did $413,000 today that we spent of that, and that's...
Well, there are other, there's other transfers that we will be doing in the future. In other words, like for the OFR, we have approved travel for some of the people to go for additional training. We have costs for the OFR that we're also going to be reporting. So we also hired a gentleman through Carbon Monroe Pike, and we did also bring that up for approval. We have a contract with Carbon Monroe Pike Drug and Alcohol to provide a gentleman who is a addiction specialist to go out with that detective. We will also try to cover the cost of that detective for the work that she's doing at that time. So all those are eligible expenses. Any other questions? Jane?
Yes, you speak about awareness, which is great, but I'm wondering if there's any public education programs that you're going to be offering for the public to actually get out there?
We are.
We are, yeah.
Just so you know, we are. One of the big things with the hiring of this gentleman, his job is also to go out and speak publicly and be at events. There are two things that we are giving out. One is Narcan. I have Narcan if you'd like it. I have some in my vehicle. My kids went to college with Narcan. They say, Dad, you're crazy, but I said, you never know when somebody might need it. The other thing is RX Destroyer. What we find is oftentimes when people, there's like a spring cleaning, we'll clean out your medicine closet at the same time. RX Destroyer is a package that you can put those pills into this package, you shake it up, and then it's eligible for disposal. We don't want pills flushed down into our water systems because that affects everybody else downstream from us. So we ask everybody come out to community night. We'll be there with Narcan and RX Destroyer. Come out to any other, we'll meet with anybody, any organization, and provide these services.
So just to piggyback on that, CVS also has boxes in their pharmacies to dispose of
Right.
expired prescription drugs as well.
I have a long history of trying to get those boxes in, and it hasn't been easy, but I think what's happening is that since some of the pharmacies are part of the settlement, they are stepping up to the plate to say we are also responsible. Why Rite Aid went out of business, it's part of the settlement problem. So they are stepping up to do so. Before we tried to get them 4 years ago, the only place you could get rid of it was at the courthouse.
Yeah, well, thank you for that initiative.
Well, there's many oars in the water on this. Any other questions? Yes.
One with the education, what does the treatment look like in-house, out-house, out of service?
Well, the outhouse has a line. No.
I didn't get that, but that's how it came out.
Well, what happens is that we will, with the increase of access, okay, if you do not have insurance, we will sign you up because of the expansion of Medicaid. We will sign you up for insurance. And then you will be able to, if you meet the criteria for that, and then we will find you a place. It might not be local, but we will find places for you to get into. When I started 8 years ago, we did not have funding for drug and alcohol, okay? We had the ability to get you 15 days, okay? Well, if you enter drug treatment on the 1st of March, you're only going to get 15 days of service. So what we tried to do was have you go in on, let's say, the 16th. That way you'd have 15 days in that month and then 15 days in the following month. But what would happen is oftentimes we'd lose people in between. So we have made great strides in how we can service people with addiction problems. And we are trying very hard to reduce the stigma of addiction because it is a disease. It's not, people don't wake up thinking they're going to be a opioid addict or any other kind of addict.
So the first place then is you're saying probably Monroe, Marvin, and drug and alcohol be a place for people to reach out?
Yes, we have a reach out phone number. We are also working with there's the LEDI program for law enforcement. You can turn yourself into any law enforcement personnel in Monroe County, and they'll help you get you into treatment. Not help you, but get you into treatment. We're also working with the public defender to come up with some kind of program that they can perhaps shepherd people through the system. Any other questions?
Well, as a follow-up to what you're saying.
I was going to try. I thought I had everything, but I'm sure I missed something.
No, the question was what's in-house. And
Right.
by that, I assume it's referring to the correctional facility.
Correct.
And there is some evaluation processes there, but I'm really keen on seeing if maybe that opioid money could be used in part to fund the MAT program at the correctional facility, medically assisted treatment.
Right.
I think that
Can be.
that may be something because there's a lawsuit that has been filed against the AOPC and Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and I say half a dozen courts of common pleas throughout the state where they had denied MAT treatment, and it was found to be arbitrary and a violation of the Disabilities Act. So currently, as I understand it, Monroe County only provides MAT to pregnant females, and everybody else is going cold turkey and going through withdrawal who need medically assisted treatment. And it's interesting because our county, I believe, uses the same insurance provider as Pike County, and Pike County does have MAT. So that's one of the things I wanted to bring up. And I know the restrictions on the opioid settlement money are pretty strident and rigid, and maybe that's something too we could inquire about.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I was at the CCAP conference the last few days.
I was going to bring that up too.
Okay, anyway.
I read your mind.
No, anyway, talking to other commissioners, I learned that's one thing we can spend it on, and I think that would be something. I definitely want to look into it, and be glad to work with you on that.
If you are an MAT user, then you have the ability. But the question is, do you want to introduce MAT? And we'd have to look in to see whether there is any kind of, everything has to be based on facts, you know? So somebody has to show that, you know, the recidivism is lower because of the introduction of MAT, but you know, we are working more towards education to help those who are coming out of the correctional office or correctional facility to remain clean as opposed to, you know, following in. That's why we have home plans and everything else that have to be followed and so on.
And specific training at the correctional facility with our director.
Well, and MAT is one of the recommendations that came out of the OFR.
Any other questions? Yes?
Question about that. So is it, this is my education purpose to share, is it the prevalence that is available that is the problem? Is it the type of drugs that are available that are so addictive? But I guess I'm asking the prevalence that makes it easy for people to get drugs. General question.
A long history,
It is.
okay, is that what happened was that we had the opioid epidemic, okay? Started out as people that were discharged from the hospital were given pain pills, and then they become addicted to pain pills. We've tightened up on how those can be distributed, okay? So now you have a group of people that are, or anybody else that is looking for that same kind of euphoric high. So now you have, it's a matter of economics. Now you have fentanyl. Fentanyl used to come in from China, okay? Now we've clamped down on, and China has both clamped on fentanyl coming in from China. So now the cartels are doing fentanyl, and fentanyl comes up from Mexico. Fentanyl can be added to any product. That's why any non-manufactured pills, 7 out of 10 of them contain fentanyl. The problem with fentanyl is it could be added to any pill. I could test that tablet and come up with a negative test for fentanyl, and it can still have fentanyl in it because it's only in this section of the pill. So it's a very difficult project that we're undertaking to help eradicate, but we've had people that have had fentanyl-laced marijuana, okay? So that's the problem. Any other questions? Yes?
Not to be back with this, but now if you're saying it's coming up from Mexico, and obviously we have a wide open border right now, so is there any discussion about like trying to maybe clamp down on that?
What you'll find is 90% of fentanyl that is imported to the United States is brought in by Americans.
Correct.
Anything else? Yes?
Different public comment. A quick update from the controller's office, if I may. Yeah.
Public comment.
Yeah, so Eric Beamer, County Controller. A little history. Over the past 2 years, the office has fallen about a year behind on audits. Following the recent completion of the 2022 single audit, as well as the 2021 and 22 tax collector audit, we are caught up to speed. We're all up to date as far as our auditing goes. And for the public, the tax collector audits from 21 and 22 will be up on the website in the coming weeks. So thank you.
Excellent. Yes?
Unless I want to say anything.
Oh, I doubt that.
I like questions. So the 90%
Mm-hmm.
statistic that was just given is Americans are bringing it in. That's a statistic because we know they are caught somewhere. What about, we can't know the statistic of what is not caught?
I understand, but you know, if you think about the trafficking of illegal immigrants into the United States, and I'm putting a valuable package on that, that's quite the chance that the cartel does not necessarily want to take.
You're saying they wouldn't traffic it through the illegal person coming across, or packages in general, other ways.
Well, if it's coming,
I'm saying more is that the statistic can't be analyzed if we don't know
who the people are, or even if there's, what if there's illegal particles coming in that we just know?
And we do know that's border protection and all the things that they follow up on with DEA and everybody else. Anything else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are. Thank you for coming. We have 10:30 election board, and for those of you so inclined, at 1:30 Board of Assessment. Thank you for coming.